For many of us from the Indian subcontinent, time may be running out, fast.
Trouble is brewing within us.
A human enemy, a demon of heart disease and heart attacks, lurks in the darkness, waiting to pull the trigger.
Make no mistake, with an aim to kill.
The heart attack.
Heart attack.
Heart attack.
There is a rise in heart attacks among young people.
This is an epidemic. हमारी नई पीढ़ी में, हमारे बच्चों में. सोचिए, सूरज उगने से पहले ही ढल जाए.
There was a time when the heart attack used to be beyond 60, 70. I am very shocked to see that when the young ones, like 30, 40 में ही उनका attack हो जाता है.
In my practice, it is not the young son bringing his old father for a bypass grafting. It is the old father bringing his young son for a bypass grafting. It's a very sad situation.
70% of deaths from heart attacks in South Asians occurred in people between ages 30 and 60.
And why is that important? Because it's striking these patients at the prime of their lives. They're breadwinners for the families that are being affected. They have young children that now are going to get affected.
Anybody of this age group, myself included, it's very hard to think about what's going to happen 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now.
There is a significant portion of catastrophic spending going into the care of patients who are economically most viable as they're ever going to be in their 40s and 50s.
The statistics are staggering. One demographic is having more heart attacks and dying from them than any other. We're talking about people of South Asian descent.
Those who are locked in the rat race, those who are trying to do it all. It's time you slow down. Your health demands it.
Progressively, the heart disease or coronary artery disease in particular in India is affecting more younger and younger patients.
Sadly, this was on public display recently in Gujarat, India.
But this year, Garba nights have turned into a nightmare. Within a span of 24 hours, at least 10 people have reportedly died of heart attacks at Garba events.
आज आखी रात नाचो छे लट्ठे दी चादर उत्थे सलेटी रंग माया आओ सामने खोलो की रुत पे ना रंग माया
गुजरात में बढ़ रहे हार्ट अटैक के केस 24 घंटों में. गरबा सेलिब्रेशन में 10 लोगों की हार्ट अटैक से मौत.
All the deaths were the result of a cardiac arrest. The youngest among them was 17.
there is an epidemic of heart disease in India, in our city.
चलो जल्दी। राघव। ECG कनेक्ट करिए। Clear? 1, 2, 3, shock. 1, 2, 3, clear. Shock. CPR continue. Flight line. It's flight line.
अब आया है सुस्ताने का मौसम, मिल के मुस्कुराने का मौसम। पहले शाम को मिला करते थे, अब आया है दिन में मिलने का मौसम।
I met Renu, my medical school sweetheart, in 1985.
We moved to the US in 1987 and have spent most of our adult life here.
We collectively shared over 70 years of medical practice caring for people. We have also shared joyful years of togetherness, a real blessing. We consider ourselves fortunate to still be taking trips together 38 years after we met.
Fortunate for sure. However, one such hiking in Mukteshwar in North India changed my life forever. In the middle of a beautiful hike at 8,000 feet above the sea level in Uttarakhand, I had chest pain. As a doctor, for a minute I thought I may not make it. जिंदगी में पहली बार गुजरने का डर लगा. I had no hospitals nearby and no medicines with me. Fast forward to a month later, I was diagnosed with heart disease, a blockage in one of my arteries. Thankfully, no heart attack. Not only was I worried about my life, what about my children? What about their risk of heart disease?
It was one scary time in our lives. TV news was full of stories of Indian celebrities getting heart attacks and passing away young.
The popular singer KK passed away after performing on a stage in Kolkata.
KK sir was on stage and he couldn't breathe properly. He, in between the concert, took a break for like 10 minutes just to go back, wash his face. The man came back straight up and performed like nothing's wrong. And nobody knew that this was going to be his last performance.
Actor Puneet Rajkumar has indeed died of a heart attack.
Mr. Puneet Rajkumar, who is a phenomenal actor, who was loved by each and every single person. It was so sudden. Very recently, I was working with Shreyas Talpade.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I must tell you, he was so energetic, so energetic. We shot for a film in Faridabad, and then cut to after like 15 days, I heard of him getting the heart attack.
We received news of one instance after another of premature heart attacks among our close friends and relatives.
Until it hit our own lives, we often do not comprehend the impact of such a major problem.
So both of us set out on a journey to uncover what is behind the staggering loss of life and quality of life related to premature and severe heart attacks in South Asians.
Those from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, and those from these countries who have migrated elsewhere.
Our journey was like this hike, with its ups and downs through different terrains.
Our real journey took us to 3 different continents, specifically to India, United Kingdom, and the United States, and a close look at the Indian diaspora in all of these places.
We touched and felt the culture, connected with the affected people and families, and spoke to some of the best heart experts in the world. We then processed all the evidence by way of a regular, what I may call a war room discussion with our core team of heart experts.
We also went to 2 unusual group of people. We call them connectors. They know how to connect with people and the human heart and human emotions. Popular social media and film celebrities. When they talk, people listen.
Our journey was planned to address 3 specific areas. 1, what is the scale and human impact of this epidemic? 2, why is it happening?
And as a physician, the third part was most important. What can we, or rather us, do about it? The scale was staring us in our eye.
The Cardiology Society of India reports 3 million major heart attacks in India every year, and approximately 5 to 7% die after a serious heart attack.
2.5 लाख लोग हर साल ST elevation MI से हिंदुस्तान में मर रहे हैं.
Wow. Think about it. This is analogous to 3 commercial aircrafts crashing every single day and killing all on board.
You may say, oh well, India is such a large country. The numbers are going to be high. Here is the context.
South Asia as a whole has about 20% of the world's population and 60% of the world's incidence of cardiovascular disease.
Another way to account for the disproportionate impact of heart disease in India is to compare heart disease deaths at the prime of life, 15 to 49 years of age. India stands way above all, and look at the disturbing trend line going up. Although the statistics themselves are scary, the human stories of survival and loss interested us even more.
And as the stories unfolded, they had remarkable similarities to each other. Whether it was our own backyard right here in Harrisburg, or the other corner of the world in India and Pakistan, the most telling were patient descriptions of dealing with the enemy of heart disease, often jolting them from sleepy, mundane life routines. The symptoms were as diverse as the disease itself.
दर्द हो रही थी सीने में.
अच्छा.
हाँ.
अच्छा. और किस तरह का दर्द था?
जिस जान पर कुछ नोच रहा.
Often people thought it was something other than the heart. A gas problem maybe. This frequently delayed getting them timely help.
पहला अटैक मेरे जब माइनर पड़ा तो मुझे इसको लगा गैस की प्रॉब्लम.
अच्छा.
उस दिन मैंने इसको जो है छोड़ो कोई बात ही नहीं. उसके बाद दोबारा दूसरे दिन जब मेरे दूसरा पड़ा तब मैं लारी गया.
Okay.
तब उन्होंने बताया कि तुम्हारा दूसरा अटैक है.
Others described very, very different symptoms.
And that day I realized that I want to talk but I'm not able to talk.
सांस बिल्कुल ऐसे था जैसे बंद नहीं हो गया. तो ठंडे पसीने आने शुरू हुए थे. पूरे सीने में बहुत पेन था.
Still others described a classic description of severe chest pain after shoveling snow.
And I came in, put the shovel down, and started to feel this pain in my chest, which very rapidly escalated to severe crushing pain, and I was on the floor.
To shortness of breath on mowing the lawn.
उसके बाद फिर मैं 5 मिनट के ब्रेक के बाद दोबारा शुरू किया. फिर 2-3 मिनट के बाद मेरे को सांस फूलनी शुरू हो गई.
And others with a variety of symptoms.
I was all alone at home. In the midnight, 12:30 a.m. it happened. I had severe chest pain.
And yet others had no symptoms at all.
When in 1994, when I was 48 years old, I was having a company in India and went for executive checkup. Checkup came out and says, wait a minute, you have a coronary heart disease.
And then we witnessed the most ominous outcome, death itself.
It was Diwali 2010. Dr. Manjul, an eye doctor in Jamshedpur, was only in his 50s at the time. His wife Luna recalls the day.
It was like any other usual Diwali. We were very happy. We were celebrating. We did the usual. We did our prayers. Dhruv and Manjul and myself. Manjul was just sitting on the chair watching television. I said, Manjul, what's happened? What, you're not feeling well or something? He said, yes, I'm having a little fluttering in my heart. So I said, oh, just hang on, just relax. I'll just take your blood pressure. I turned around and picked up the machine, the BP machine, and when I turned around, he was gone. He was not responding. He was just lying with his eyes closed.
Our detailed exploration of early and severe heart disease in South Asians took us first to India.
New Delhi, India, the first stop in our journey. Delhi, and what is called the National Capital Region, is home to some of the best hospitals and doctors in India. Medanta, the Medicity, is one such quaternary care hospital system spread over 43 beautiful acres in Gurugram. Noted cardiac surgeon and founder of Medanta Hospitals, Dr. Naresh Trehan, has witnessed this epidemic up close and personal for over 4 decades.
So it's a worrisome trend, very worrisome. And then people who look seemingly very healthy, exercising, bicycling, dancing, all that stuff. And then every week or two, we are given a rude reminder how somebody collapses doing regular activity when they had no history, young age.
From the outskirts of Delhi, we traveled to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, an iconic institution that proudly sits in the heart of the city. Dr. Balram Bhargava heads the cardiology department there.
Heart disease does occur in South Asians 10 years earlier, and they do have heart attacks at a younger age.
The story was repeated over and over again by heart specialists in different hospitals.
You would be surprised, out of 150 cases I operate in a week, 30 to 30% are between, 35% are between the age of 18 to 35 years.
Not only were we hearing of early and severe heart disease, we were also hearing that the extent of heart disease was spread out to all the 3 major arteries and beyond.
And the disease we are seeing is that the coronary arteries are smaller in size. There is more diffused blockages, more complex blockages, small blood vessels are involved which are microscopic.
So we'll come back to the capital region of India, but our travels took us next to Bangalore. Home to Narayana Health System, headed by the well-known Dr. Devi Shetty, a heart surgeon who also trained abroad before coming back to serve his motherland.
In India, it's always the breadwinner of the family most of the time. It's very sad, predominantly because if only they got some tests done 20 years earlier, this could have been postponed or even prevented.
While in North India, several of our beliefs about heart disease were challenged, one of which was the false notion that early heart disease is a disease primarily of men. Not so, we were told.
Actually, if you see these heart disease in women, because this was, a myth which has been there for many years, that cardiac problem, they do not happen in women. It's mainly a men's disease.
Part of the reason this notion exists is because of the focus of women health only on the reproductive system and the breast.
Okay, so there's a very interesting term, Dr. Joshi, called bikini medicine. And the term means that we look at women's health and we feel that it's different from men's health only in the bikini area. That means we focus on her breast and her reproductive health.
Turns out that the leading cause of death in women is actually not breast cancer or any genital cancer for that matter. It is heart disease, 10 times more common than breast cancer deaths.
New research shines a bright light on the gender gap in heart care. Heart disease is the #1 cause of death in women.
Another reason for the myth that heart disease is predominantly a men's disease is because heart disease is simply pushed to a bit later in age in women, until after menopause.
The reason the notion of women being protected comes from the age difference in heart disease that you see. Women in the premenopausal setting are somewhat protected from heart disease, but that protection goes away with menopause, and the rates of heart disease in postmenopausal women starts to rise pretty significantly.
But an alarming trend is actually being seen.
Diabetics now, the obesity is there. The third important thing is that during pregnancy, if you develop some gestational diabetes mellitus or pregnancy-induced hypertension, which we call it, or if you're hypertensive during pregnancy,
These all are risk factors which are now contributing to developing heart disease at early stage.
So, if women have risk factors such as diabetes, high blood pressure, or obesity, they get heart disease early, just like men.
Also, there are other sobering statistics on women and heart disease. It is well known that women have higher death rates, a higher chance of a second heart attack, higher disability rates, and are less likely to receive timely intervention after a heart attack.
Dr. Salim Virani, currently based in Karachi, serves as a Vice Provost of Global Research at Aga Khan University, Pakistan. He has previously led efforts to create a database of heart patients in India called the PICWIP study.
The quality of care was much lower in women compared to men with heart disease. Women in general have more comorbidities, so they are on average sicker compared to their male counterparts. What does it mean? That you basically have to be much sicker compared to a male to seek care.
The other thing when you talk about women and heart disease is a significant under-recognition of symptoms. So heart disease and its risk as a whole in women seems to be very, very under-recognized.
About 12 years ago, a woman called me and said, I'm having chest pain. And I listened to her and I said, it's anxiety. My brother was also a cardiologist. I called him. I said, let me just talk to her and see what you think. He said anxiety. But mom had a stent the next day. My dad, on the other hand, who used to run 5 to 7 miles, when he had a vague episode of chest pain, we called 911.
For now, our travels took us to the Indian diaspora in the UK and the US, people who have migrated away from India.
Since South Asian immigration to the UK preceded that to the US, health research data on our communities first came from UK.
I'm standing in the beautiful city of Edinburgh, Scotland. Behind me is the old medical school in the University of Edinburgh. This is where most of the research was done on why Asians get heart disease and diabetes. And a lot of this research was actually done by Dr. Raj Bhopal, an accomplished professor of public health, who has written this whole book about this topic.
As I asked him about his findings, he took me back to 1980s.
Well, I was brought up in Glasgow, which is a city in the west coast of Scotland, which is the epicenter of heart disease. For many decades, it was notorious. And many of my friends their dads were dying from heart attacks just suddenly.
He remembers being asked the question by one of his colleagues about heart disease in South Asians. And his response?
It's not something I've studied, but I would expect heart disease to be low in Indians and South Asians because there's a lot of vegetarianism, smoking prevalence is very low. Only 10 minutes later, we were listening to Professor Michael Marmot giving his lecture on this topic. And he said, people from the Indian subcontinent living in England and Wales have a 15% higher mortality from coronary heart disease than the population who were born in England and Wales. So ever since then, I have started developing a strong interest in this subject to try and ask the question, why?
He would try to answer this question over the course of decades to come. But for now, our journey took us to another part of the UK, to Dr. Wasim Hanif, a professor of diabetes and president of the South Asian Health Foundation residing in Birmingham. So this area in Birmingham is home to a very large South Asian community. In fact, in Birmingham itself, the local European population now forms a minority. It's less than 50% of the population.
Most of them are from Pakistan, from what we call the Punjab side of Pakistan, from an area called Mirpur. Then we've got a very big Indian populations, again from Punjab, mainly the Sikh communities.
What differences do you actually see in your South Asian counterparts when you compare them to Europeans?
Yeah, so this is probably one of the work that we've been doing for a very long time. So we've got one of the longest longitudinal studies called the United Kingdom Asian Diabetes Study that was set up. As South Asians, our incident rates of diabetes are about 3 to 6 times higher than the white population. The second important thing is that the age of onset is about a decade earlier.
Very clearly, in the 70s and the 80s, it was becoming apparent to the doctors and researchers in the UK that South Asians living in the UK were at a very high risk of early heart disease, including risk factors such as diabetes.
At around the same time, the same pattern was becoming evident to heart specialists in the US, at least anecdotally. A young cardiologist from Kerala settled in Chicago was becoming more and more interested in this topic as the epidemic was beginning to come really very close to him personally.
The very first was a fellow Indian, actually from Kerala, my home state. He came to our emergency room with chest pain on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with chest pain. Because he was so young, nobody entertained the possibility of an MI, and he was admitted with a massive MI on the 5th visit. And while awaiting a transplant, he died 15 years later.
Two more stories of severe heart disease and death in young resident physicians followed. The deaths and the human impact was not going to go in vain. Dr. Enos established a study called CADI, coronary artery disease in Indians.
Not only was he moved by the early and severe heart disease in Indians, he was also beginning to see a rapid worsening of the disease with the time. He describes another 37-year-old resident who had a heart attack and had minimal disease in his arteries to begin with.
10 years later, he had virtually inoperable heart disease. From near normal arteries and an MI, he progressed to extremely severe heart disease. All his arteries were blocked, and I coined the term malignant coronary artery disease.
So when we talk about malignant heart disease, malignant is a word that comes from cancer, right? And that word malignant captures a lot of emotions around heart disease, the fear associated with it.
Through his organization, CADI, he began his journey at a national conference of physicians, essentially asking them questions about heart disease in themselves. He was surprised by the results.
1 in 10 had documented heart disease, compared to 2.5% in the general population of the US, which is the Framingham Heart Study.
Over the next couple of decades, several studies began to ask the question that was troubling Dr. Enos in Chicago. Why are South Asians getting early and severe heart disease?
The most current efforts to address this question come from the MASALA study, mediators of atherosclerosis in South Asians living in America. Dr. Alka Kanaya is professor of medicine at UCSF, the University of California in San Francisco, and serves as the principal investigator of the MASALA study.
So the total cohort size will be a little over 2,300 by this year. So, it's about half men, half women. The original cohort was 1,164 people, and half at each of our sites. You had to be between age 40 and 84 to be in the cohort.
So the MASALA study is similar, really, if you think about it, to the Framingham study we talked about, a study where healthy people, and that's important, healthy people are followed over time. By design, it takes time to get results with such studies, but basic themes are already beginning to emerge.
Also emerging is a diversity of risk between South Asian groups itself.
In the 3 different, South Asian subgroups, with Bangladeshis having the highest incidence of cardiovascular disease or heart disease.
This is similar to the UK Biobank study that also specifically noted Indians about twice as likely, Pakistanis 2.5 times as likely, and Bangladeshis almost 3.5 times as likely to develop heart disease than white populations.
There is a definite increase in prevalence of smoking in Bangladeshi men and an increased prevalence of diabetes in both Bangladeshi and Pakistani men as compared to Indians. Other factors are less clear.
A logical follow-up question is, what about the risk of heart disease in those born and raised in the United States or the United Kingdom?
The MASALA 2G study in the US is enrolling children of MASALA study participants to address precisely this question. The answers will come with time.
Statistics is one thing, but the real stories of human impact are those that we were really interested in.
कुछ भी हो सकता है. So it was very, very scary.
They were both so scared that he was beginning to plan a bit of a strategy.
Yeah, sort of an exit strategy, right?
When he was sitting with pen and paper, there was a question I asked him, कविता लिख रहे हो क्या? And he said कि तुझे भी कविता सूझ रही है. कि तेरे, because he never sit with paper and pencil.
तुझे कविता सूझ रही है. Turns out Manpal was actually making notes about finances and mortgages to share with Archana, if you recall.
Our retirement accounts with the state, our pension accounts, we don't have any nominees on each other.
Yeah.
So that time I thought, oh, there's a problem. So I found the form, filled it, printed, and then it was not yet signed. While I was having that attack and she's calling 911, at that time I signed on my papers, okay, at least that is covered.
As if I'm going to have a heart attack right now. It's like, you revisit all those. And when I came, he was standing in the kitchen over here and he was huffing and puffing. And then I took Kala and I reached upstairs and उसको दरवाजे में मैं बंद करके, and then मुझे लग रहा था पता नहीं अभी जाऊंगी क्या होगा, कब वापस आऊंगी.
The scare was shared by their daughter, Oshu.
Did you ever, the thought cross your mind that you may lose him?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was like after hearing about that there was going to be a surgery. That's when I got like really worried.
This is what happens when a heart attack strikes. In a moment, we are thinking of our exit plan from this world, and the loved ones we leave behind. In Manpal's case, the family recalls his words before going for heart surgery, and they're heartbreaking.
Mom, he did not even say I love you. Only thing he said was take care of your mom.
Satya Bhattacharya is a urologic surgeon practicing in London. Outside of surgery, Satya is a sensitive, emotional person who enjoys seeing Indian films, reading and writing poetry.
When the pain happened, I thought I was going to die. And it's only 45 minutes later when the stent was deployed, the pain settled. It was, oh, lucky escape. I have not died after all.
His wife Shanti, herself a physician, recalls the emotions when heart attack struck.
The potential for loss of life, or that there was?
Yeah, because halfway through the road, we were driving through an icy road and then the ambulance started blue lighting. And I started panicking as to why they've got their blue lights on.
Death continued to be the recurring theme in heart attack victims. Ashish Mathur lives in Mountain View, California. At the peak of a very busy career in business, he suffered a heart attack. He describes the impact.
But it kind of shook me up completely. And actually, when the doctor was talking to my wife after he had put in the stents, he mentioned these words that made it really scary. I mean, he says, your husband had a heart attack in the LAD, and these are kind of the widow makers.
While the heart attack was scary for Ashish, Manpal, and Satya, it really seemed to be a blessing. Ashish changed his own life and also the face of public health in his area in California.
Not everyone is as fortunate. And the term widowmaker begins to take a literal meaning.
You're very right in one thing that unless you experience it, you really don't know, because I had colleagues, I had friends, I had senior colleagues who lost their spouses. Of course, we all felt bad. But the feeling that when you lose a spouse, it cannot be really explained. It is horrible. And your children are not really totally settled. That is the time when children really need advice from their father. And I could feel that they really miss him.
A 38-year-old undergoes emergent bypass surgery following a heart attack. A 30-year-old passes out doing garba. A 30-year-old woman loses her 36-year-old husband. I'm thinking to myself, what if this was my brother or sister?
Whether it be a story of the Garba victims in Gujarat or Manjul's story in Jamshedpur, Manpal's story in the US, Renu's story in our very own household, or Satya's story in London, the common thread is just how frequent heart attacks are.
Early and severe heart disease. We as Indians, actually all South Asians, are fighting an enemy that is threatening our life, our quality of life, at the prime of our lives. For our next chapter, our next destination, the question is why? Why are so many of us getting heart attacks?
Why are so many of us dying from heart disease?
Is it our genes?
Is DNA our destiny? And what about our next generation, our children?
तो सवाल ये है कि क्या ये हमारी किस्मत है या हमारे जीने का तरीका? और अगर किस्मत है, तो क्या हम किस्मत बदल सकते हैं? हाथों की लकीरें मोड़ सकते हैं?
The joy and celebrations of birth and the beginning of life have barely settled.
The demon of heart disease and subsequent heart attacks has already begun to search for a vulnerable target to attack. Yes, this early in life.
We are sent into the world with this extremely powerful organ called the heart.
Heart is probably the most important structure in the body. Why? Because once it starts, it doesn't stop.
The heart pumps blood and oxygen to all parts of our body using channels called arteries.
The arterial system is a beautiful and sophisticated system like branches of a tree.
Blood flows smoothly through these arteries at birth and most of our life if they are healthy.
The insides of these pipes is nice and smooth, allowing the blood cells to flow smoothly, carrying oxygen to all parts of our body, including the heart.
Until something happens, silently, an injury to the inside wall of the artery.
Whenever there is injury, the body responds in a certain fashion to counteract that injury.
These small particles of fat and cholesterol begin to stick to the injured wall. This collection is called the plaque.
So plaques are nothing but narrowings in the artery which consist of cholesterol and some similar particles.
Here is the alarming part though.
The earliest evidence of plaque in the human body is actually been documented at age 2 years.
From this young age onwards, more and more narrowing occurs.
And then, in some of us, this narrowing begins to threaten our heart's supply of blood and oxygen, particularly when we are doing vigorous activities, like the Garba dancers during dancing, or Manpal during mowing his lawn, or Satya during shoveling snow.
So in times of more blood demand, the supply of the oxygen carried by blood is reduced. So there is a demand-supply imbalance.
The biggest warning sign makes its first appearance.
The heart is crying and demanding more blood and oxygen.
And that cry is labeled as angina.
Eventually, if ignored, the narrowing keeps getting tighter and eventually stops supplying enough blood to the heart.
Now, when the heart asks for more, there is nothing more to give. The heart cannot function. It stops.
Most important, if it stops, you die.
अजीब देश है हमारा। पिज्जा 30 मिनट में पहुंचने की गारंटी है, लेकिन एम्बुलेंस?
This provocative quote from our favorite Three Idiots film says it all. The critical importance of time in getting medical help.
When heart attack strikes, time is critical. Every minute counts. When it comes to saving life and also saving critical heart muscle from permanent damage, as they say, time is muscle.
And within around 2 hours, 3 hours, most of the damage is almost nearly complete.
This critical period is often called the golden period, the opportunity for action.
सिम्टम्स और मौत के बीच का टाइम, इसी टाइम में जानें जाती हैं और जानें बचाई जा सकती हैं। गोल्डन पीरियड इसीलिए कहा जाता है इसे।
So the real take-home message is, take your symptoms seriously and report as soon as possible. Your life may depend on it.
While in many Western countries this has become well known and emergency medical systems referred to as EMS systems are in place to accomplish rapid intervention, India continues to struggle for a variety of reasons.
For example, the number of patients reaching in time to a hospital capable of doing this emergency therapy, immediate therapy, is roughly less than 1/4 in some other parts of India. In 2023 also, the most common treatment a common garden Indian gets is no treatment for heart attack.
Most common treatment is no treatment. Wow. Followed by delayed intervention.
Despite roadblocks, a courageous and ambitious program was started as a pilot at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Mission Delhi. After meticulously developing clinical protocols, the program was put in place.
So whenever there is a cardiac symptom is there, they can call us in a particular helpline, and immediately the doctors will attend to them and find out the seriousness of the problem and the probability of a cardiac event being there. And immediately 2 motorcycle riders, 2 paramedics fully equipped with all the modern gadgets that are needed in an emergency situations, including a defibrillator, a life pack, and everything is there. All the emergency medicines are there, and they are dispatched to the...
So once a team reaches the location, they take a brief history, consent, physical examination, and ECG is performed, then transmitted to the command center, which is in AIIMS, for teleconsultation with the cardiologist. And based on their advice, the clotbuster therapy is initiated in STEMI patient after taking consent.
Dr. Chandani proudly describes administration of clot-busting drug to the first patient on the field.
We were able to perform ECG, transmit, and we thrombolize the patient within 30 minutes.
30 minutes in the middle of Delhi of all places. Wow. I spoke to Paramjeet Singh, who owes his life to the Mission Delhi program.
मुश्किल से 5 मिनट लगे होंगे, मोटरसाइकिल फटाफट आ गई, फटाफट ब्लड थिनर लगाया, और जैसे ही थिनर लगाया मैं एकदम खड़ा सा हो गया।
Jayaprakash had a very similar experience.
चंद मिनटों में ही वो मोटरसाइकिल और एम्बुलेंस आ गई, ट्रीटमेंट शुरू कर दिया। उनको वहाँ काबू में नहीं आया तो मुझे एम्स में ला करके और ट्रीट कर दिया गया।
अच्छा, और
मतलब मौत के मुंह से जाते जाते वापस खींच लिया।
I was absolutely delighted to see these stories of early intervention on the field, particularly the valiant efforts from a government-run system with very limited resources.
The messages were clear. Report any suspicious heart symptom immediately and get medical help, and try to get to a good heart center early. This is even more important in South Asians.
We have a smaller body surface area as compared to the Western counterparts. So naturally, the luminal diameter, or let's say the diameter of the tubes, will be smaller.
What we showed was that the lumen size for a male or female of Indian descent, when you correct for body surface area, was smaller among South Asians, male and female.
Dr. Jauhar attributed this to a higher plaque burden, meaning South Asians have a higher amount of plaque, narrowing the arterial pipe and therefore making it more prone to heart attacks. Of note, more recent data from the MASALA study has demonstrated no difference in arterial size between South Asians and whites when adjusted for body surface area. But what contributes to this plaque? What increases the risk? Decades ago, the Framingham Heart Study drew attention to what were called risk factors.
I used to smoke for 20 years, for 20 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
Can you beat that? कुछ भी खा लेना, कहीं भी सो जाना.
सुबह उठते थे पहले तो बाहर की 2 पूड़ी खाते थे.
Okay.
उसके बाद पूड़ी खाने के बाद दोपहर में अगर घर में खाया नहीं खाया तो नॉनवेज खा लेते थे.
हाँ, बीपी थी, बीपी शुगर था.
अच्छा, दोनों थे.
In fact, he had all the risk factors. He had diabetes, he had hypertension, and it runs in their family. And he also had dyslipidemia, which also runs in their family.
There you see it. Smoking, diabetes, blood pressure, stress, the typical offenders are what we call risk factors for heart attacks.
But then we have met so many who had virtually no risk factors.
All blood investigation, blood reports were very normal for me.
I did not have any obvious risk factors.
I did not think I had any risk factors. No diabetes, high blood pressure, smoking, or alcohol. I exercised 30 minutes daily for 20 years and maintained a BMI of 23. I had normal cholesterol all my life. But after menopause, a completely different story. And I'll come back to that.
So this begs the question, what is the relative contribution to heart attacks of genetics versus all other risk factors?
Modifiable versus non-modifiable. Non-modifiable simply means you really cannot change it. It is up to fate, kismat.
In South Asian culture, this word kismat is very important.
Fate is a very important factor in our life.
There was some form of acceptance. So this word kismat was branded around.
I think that's a lazy approach, and it's fatalist. It leads to fatalism. Now, the thing is, it may be 10%. The genetic contribution may be 10%. There may be some high-risk individuals. What you require, what are called as triggers, environmental triggers. It's like a loaded gun. You just need the trigger to be pulled, and that comes from the environment.
So while experts were beginning to mention the relatively small role played by genetics, really how much of the risk come from genes?
In the UK Biobank study, Indians were 2 times as likely to develop heart disease compared to Europeans. Now we know that, right? If one now accounts for all the modifiable risk factors, diabetes, blood pressure, being overweight, etc., the risk still remained about 1.4 times higher. Is this fate? Is this kismat? Is this genes?
At the Broad Institute of the Harvard Medical School, Dr. Amit Khera and Ramit Bhattacharya are looking at exactly this question.
If you take small mutations across the genome that occur in millions of different places, each of which has a very tiny effect on the risk of disease, you can add those risk mutations together and create one score for each individual. Everybody on the planet has a score from the percentile 0 percentile to 100 percentile.
It turns out that if you're in the top 5% of the population, 1 in 20 people, you're at more than triple the risk of developing heart disease when compared to everybody else.
So essentially, a close look at the genes seems to provide us with a risk score, a clear number that may predict our genetic risk of heart disease.
So how do these scores help?
So for young adults, most of them don't have diabetes or high blood pressure. These traditional risk factors haven't yet set in. But here's a tool where we can say, well, let's look at your DNA, the DNA you were born with. And we can look at it any time, whether you're 20 or 30 years old, and really say, what's your future trajectory likely to be for development of heart disease as you transition to middle age and beyond?
And this is perhaps the most powerful method to motivate us to change.
But the big question, can I modify the risk that I'm born with?
We see that those at the highest genetic risk of disease benefit the most from a healthy lifestyle. And in fact, those at the highest genetic risk with a healthy lifestyle have almost equivalent risk to those at the lowest genetic risk on average.
So as there is a saying in Tamil, it's a famous saying which says that destiny can be won over by intelligence.
So can these genetic scores be done today?
Turns out they're easily available in both Western countries and in India at a relatively affordable price.
So the bottom line, genetics or destiny defined early in life certainly plays a role that can be quantified today.
But destiny itself can be modified. The vast majority of the time, the key is in our own hands. And I remember my mother's advice to me and our children: you are the creator of your own destiny.
What about unique risks associated with being a woman? In addition to what we have already talked about, a woman's life today has really become quite complex.
Stressed, very stressed, long hours of work, maybe even like night work and shift work. And so their health is not good. And they're also walking into a pregnancy, not as healthy as they should be. 25% of pregnancies are complicated by some form of high blood sugar. Women with gestational diabetes are at increased risk for cardiovascular disease.
Very appropriate.
They've shown that not just the next generation. So if the mother who has gestational diabetes happens to have a baby who's a girl, the baby she's carrying, so that baby's ovaries are already there and the eggs are already there. So it gets kind of bathed in the grandmother's glucose. And now that baby is at risk for future diabetes and gestational diabetes. So we're talking 2 generations at least, clearly.
Second, the symptoms which are there in women, they are not very classical, which we usually tell to the patient or which we read that you have a central chest pain radiating to jaw or radiating to your left arm. In women, we don't see that much more commonly. We see them, it's like more, they are more having breathlessness.
Okay.
They're having more anxiety or restlessness.
Is there a conscious gender bias in terms of how people interpret those symptoms?
Yes, I agree. There's gender bias at the level of patient and the gender bias at the level of physician also.
When it comes to women and heart disease, an important point of view emerged related to men.
And in countries like ours, it's going to be equally important to not have that education restricted to women, but to men as well, and make sure that men are also educated on these issues about women. Because sometimes women totally depend on men to make those decisions for them.
If I were to sum it up, while we cannot change genetics or gender, we can certainly change their effects on the heart by changing what we can.
Among the many things that we can change, the first big modifiable risk is high blood pressure.
The normal blood pressure for people is 120/80. As the blood pressure increases, so does the risk of heart disease. Why?
The blood pressure itself exerts stress on the walls of the vessel. And you'd have this for many, many years, 10, 20, 30 years. That's 30 years of pressure on that vessel wall. And that directly leads to injury, which then predisposes to everything else.
This injury causes the artery to become prone to plaque formation. India is plagued with a very high incidence of high blood pressure.
25% of hypertensives in the rural and about up to 50% of adults in the urban areas are hypertensives.
High blood pressure is a silent killer. It kills the heart, it kills the kidneys, it kills the brain.
Control rates are extremely low, both in urban and rural communities. From high blood pressure to the second big risk factor, a true monster of a disease.
Diabetes, a disease very close to my heart
being an endocrinologist myself. The love affair between the two has been known for decades. One of our war room experts said it right.
For me, diabetes equals heart disease. We call it the equivalent.
From the South Asian perspective, our journey took us to the home for arguably the best care and research for diabetes in India, Dr. Mohan in Chennai, South India.
Today, it's no longer a disease of the rich. As in Western countries, it came down to middle class, and today to the poorest society has more diabetes, more obesity.
And here's perhaps the single most worrisome trend of all.
Today, children. So I have 10-year-old children, 12-year-old children who are obese and who have diabetes.
By the time they reach 20 or 30 years of age, the physical body of such children has already seen all the risk of diabetes over the past 10 to 20 years.
It is no wonder that many of them are having heart attacks at really, really young ages. Diabetes is one of the strongest contributors to heart disease.
Coronary artery disease occurs at a younger age due to diabetes. It is more severe. Triple vessel disease is more common. And in a more severe and a malignant form, we want to use that term.
But what about other countries? What about UK?
So if you would say the prevalence of diabetes in Caucasian population would range anywhere between 5 to 7% in UK, the same prevalence in South Asian population would rise to 15%.
Just to give a perspective, so in the 90s, we were the first center to diagnose a young person with type 2 diabetes, a child, in the UK in Birmingham. Now today we have got a clinic full of young type 2 diabetes patients, and all of them are non-white, and majority are South Asians.
As diabetes continues on a rampant upward direction in India, we are beginning to see some hopeful signs of potential decline in Indians in the US, coming out from the MASALA study.
I think that this is an important thing that we're finding, is that the immigrants in MASALA have lower rates of diabetes than Indians living in India now.
Once you begin to track the diabetes story, you find that the real villain behind diabetes is body fat.
But wait, does having more fat means being fat?
For South Asians, particularly Indians, that may not necessarily be the case.
And there are very practical translations of this information. But to understand those, we must understand a term called the body mass index, BMI, a common method to assess ideal weight for your height.
The BMI can be easily calculated in a few seconds by plugging in your weight and your height into a simple formula. For most, a BMI above 25 buys you the label of being overweight. But for Indians,
many physicians I've spoken to still think 25 is the cutoff for overweight and 30 for obese for Asians, and South Asians specifically. And we know that's not the case. 23 for overweight and 27 for obese is.
So South Asians have a high incidence of diabetes and heart disease at a lower body weight. Why? The answer seems to be here.
When you track research in the area of visceral fat, it takes us back in time.
Rewind to 2004. An article appeared in the journal Lancet that was unique. It was 1 page long, and essentially one picture did most of the talking, very unusual. A side-by-side view of two doctors, one Indian and one European, with exactly the same body weight and BMI, but widely different body fat. 22% in the Indian and 9% in the European. The title of the article was the YY paradox, referring to the two gentlemen. Chitranjan Yajnik, the Indian in that picture, was to devote a lifetime of research to this topic, mostly based in Pune, India.
Right. I mean, YY paradox is my, what should I say, claim to fame. But the whole thing started in 1970s.
Running the diabetes clinic at Sassoon Hospital, he had already noted that these patients were mostly thin, although conventional teaching was that diabetes is the disease of obese. Later at Oxford, he got the opportunity to compare these Indian patients to 200 European patients.
Indian patients were diagnosed at least 10 years younger. They had lower BMI by almost 5 units. English average in the clinic in Oxford was 29. In Sassoon, it was 24.
The research would eventually lead to a plethora of publications and the term thin fat Indian, referring to a relatively low BMI but high fat content of Indians and the propensity to develop diabetes at low body weights.
While the relative body mass index is on the low normal side, there's a lot more fat in the wrong places of the body. By that I mean there's fat that's deposited in the liver, fat around the abdominal organs, and fat in the muscles.
So one of our war room experts came up with an interesting term to represent this phenomenon.
Called mota. Now, in Hindi, mota is fat. But if you were to spell out what mota means, it's metabolically obese thin adults.
Now, there's many different kinds of fat. Shown that if your fat is below the hip, that's good for you from a cardiometabolic point of view. If it's above the hip and on your torso, it's bad for you.
Asians are what we call apple-shaped. Caucasians are what we call pear-shaped. And what does that mean? Well, when we eat aggressively, our stomach gets large, right? When you walk the streets of Delhi, you see all these people with large bellies because they're apple-shaped.
And that increases insulin resistance, fatty liver, and diabetes. Based on the above data, for Indians, the waist circumference indeed may be a better indicator of being at a higher risk for heart attacks because we may fool the BMI tool.
Body mass index for Indians doesn't work. And I always say that waist circumference is the way to go. And in all my shows and everything, I always tell that as soon as you go home today, the first thing in the morning, you wake up and then you take an inch tape and you measure around your belly button. And I always emphasize that your belly button, not your spouse. So and then I say that if your waist circumference is more than 90 centimeters in men, congratulations, you are pregnant. And then say if your waist circumference is more than 80 centimeters in women, don't worry, it is not baby, it is the gobi that you ate last night.
A large study of women concluded that those with the biggest waist had more than double the risk of developing heart disease. Even in healthy non-smoking women, every 2 inches of additional waist size raised the risk of heart disease by 10%. And guess what is the prevalence of abdominal obesity among Indians? Close to 50%.
So when we were exploring fat as a big risk, our path took us to a really big part of this enemy, cholesterol.
There is one simple fact. Dyslipidemia is the most potent cardiovascular risk factor.
Cholesterol consists of 3 major particles. LDL, the bad one, HDL is the good one, and the triglycerides. South Asians typically have high normal LDL, around 100, low HDL, less than 40 in men and less than 50 in women, and high triglycerides, typically more than 150. What we also know from research now that South Asians have 2 extra modifiable risk factors in cholesterol that includes Lp(a) and an apolipoprotein B. I had promised you I would come back to my own cholesterol numbers. While I had a completely normal cholesterol of 140 with an LDL of 70 all my life, after menopause, my values continued to jump slowly, despite excellent habits, and eventually my LDL reached 140.
I never even bothered to check Lp(a) or apoprotein B.
Lipoprotein little a is a genetic variant of the LDL. So it does all the harm of the LDL.
But it is much more harmful than LDL. All the harmful effects of LDL are exaggerated. Normal levels of Lp(a) are less than 25. Indians often have elevated Lp(a) levels. In one research study, over 25% of Indians had elevated numbers. When combined with high levels of LDL, high Lp(a) increases the risk of heart disease logarithmically. Had I checked one of these when my LDL levels were just slightly high or even close to normal, I may have started statins much earlier.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, मोटापा जैसे हमारे मॉडर्न आभूषण बन गए हैं। अनहेल्थी डाइट और नो एक्सरसाइज जोड़ दीजिए, हार्ट अटैक की परफेक्ट रेसिपी तैयार।
Our journey has focused on how we have managed to remove the protective layers provided to us by creating and feeding visceral fat, diabetes, high blood pressure, and cholesterol. The demon is seeing a soft human target.
But why are all these diseases happening? Is it our diet and lack of exercise?
What about smoking, stress, and lack of sleep?
And then $1 million question, COVID se ho raha hai kya?
And the equally important $1 million answer, how do we put our protective layers back on ourselves?
The journey continues.
In 2019, human suffering was impacted like never before in modern times. A lethal pandemic struck and a much bigger enemy than heart disease attacked humankind. The largest number of deaths occurred from the direct effects of the infection in the hospital setting. Also, COVID had the effect of increased stickiness of the blood and related heart effects.
There is definitely a slight incremental risk of heart disease, of course, after COVID.
A well-done study by Dr. Prabhakaran and colleagues of over 5,000 COVID patients demonstrates that there was an increased heart-related death rate during COVID.
All this being said, the story of high and severe heart disease in South Asians is unfolding for decades, well before COVID came and went, and continues well after COVID has regressed. So to attribute the decades-known high rates of heart disease in South Asians to COVID, or to attribute a large part of the risk to genetics, is inherently false. And the cardiac risk of vaccines, even smaller.
We get back to what really matters. The villains of chronic diseases such as high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, visceral fat, and cholesterol. However, when you look beneath these diseases, you find poor diet and lack of exercise.
As a culture, we are very in tune with what we eat, right? Food is important to us. The vegetarian diet tends to be higher in refined carbs, tends to be higher in saturated fats. It tends to be high in trans fats. South Asians, we tend to cook our vegetables. So the concept of eating raw vegetables is not as prevalent.
Okay, so I'll tell you a very funny story. I went to this non-vegetarian restaurant and then said, this is how you should eat. And then I said, do you have a salad? They're like, you're the first person who have asked for salad in this restaurant.
Ashwini mentioned refined carbs. These are simple carbs like juices, sweets, white rice, and maida, which quickly increase blood sugar levels and are often called high glycemic index foods.
The digestive system doesn't have to work hard to digest them.
Puri, chola bhatura, kachori, samosa. you name it. As I'm sipping on my masala chai, I can tell you we love our food and we live for food. And desserts. When you get to those, you can add a very high content of fats because of deep frying and then add a huge slug of carbohydrates because of the sweetness. Heart attack ki total recipe. Another problem in Indian diets, low protein.
And there is this notion that somehow vegetarian diets are healthy.
But I call it contaminated vegetarianism. You say I am vegetarian, but then you eat all the fried foods, the samosas, the pakoras, everything else. That is not good for you.
We clearly continue our food culture on migrating to the West as well.
So we have got some studies which have actually shown is the proportion of diabetes in South Asian communities directly related to the number of fast food outlets or desert shops.
Every Indian function, the demand is that we have to have Indian food.
And when it comes to portion control?
I'm sure you travel to India a lot. I travel to India a lot. You go to any wedding and you would see 130 dishes.
My heart skips a beat when I see these thali places, right? Said, this is probably my week's worth of food and even more.
Interesting findings are emerging on dietary habits of South Asians in the United States.
And we found there are three main dietary patterns that people consume. One is an animal protein-based, more Western diet that has a lot more meat products. One is a fresh fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains diet, low-fat dairy, so a very healthy, mostly vegetarian diet. And the third was a traditional South Asian diet that was with high-fat dairy and more fried foods and high sweets.
So, the winner among these diets was, you guessed it, the healthy vegetarian diet had the lowest rate of blood pressure, body weight, and blood sugar. However, the surprising part is that the unhealthy vegetarian diet had similar risk as the Western non-vegetarian diet. There is yet another element to South Asian cooking that might make it even more unhealthy.
Deep frying our foods at high heat cause a problem.
Thousands of brand new chemicals are produced that were not in the food at the beginning. And amongst these compounds are trans fats and what we call advanced glycation end products, AGEs.
These chemicals cause a stiffening of the wall of our arteries.
There's a lot of frying and there's a lot of refrying. So if, for example, you buy a jalebi on a street in a typical town or village in India, the oil will be used until it's finished. The oil will be heating up all day long. Now, when you reheat oils, you produce all sorts of compounds, particularly trans fats, which are very dangerous.
So dangerous that they have been banned in many European countries. The WHO recommends less than 1% energy intake to come from trans fats.
A jalebi has 17% trans fat. And many of the Indian sweets have got very high levels of trans fat.
Trans fatty acids also cause inflammation or swelling of the arterial wall. Several other foods are now being recognized that do the same thing. In fact, foods are beginning to be classified based on their ability to cause such inflammation, a concept referred to as the Dietary Inflammatory Index.
And that's relatively recently known, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
historically, we didn't know of heart disease as an inflammatory disease.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And similarly, the diet can be inflammatory. If you're going to take a lot of trans fatty acid, for example, in your diet, if you're very rich in simple sugars, if you're very rich in simple carbs, like a lot of polished rice, they're all kind of pro-inflammatory. So we want to get that dietary inflammatory index low, like in Mediterranean diets.
So our Indian diets really are a quadruple threat to the heart. One, we consume large amounts of carbohydrates and sugars that have a high glycemic index.
We consume large amount of fat, even when we are vegetarians. Large amount of oil, saturated fats, such as ghee.
For sure. And 3, we often deep fry our foods in high heat, causing release of trans fatty acids and what are called advanced glycation products that injure the wall of our arteries. Samosas and jalebis fall in this category.
And 4, our protein intake is very low, often restricted to what are often referred to as second-class protein, such as dal. So we talked a lot about diet contributing to visceral fat. What about exercise? Here in the United States, South Asians have some of the lowest exercise rates of all ethnic groups.
In India, exercise rates continue to be dismal.
Today, if you tell people to go for a walk, they'll say either a truck will hit me, or the smoke will kill me, or a dog will bite me and I may get rabies, Therefore, I don't want to go for a walk. All 3 are true.
In a wonderful meta-analysis from Hong Kong, what was found was that exercise is almost twice as effective at getting rid of visceral fat than even diet. Also, what the authors found was that more exercise you did, the more you got rid of visceral fat. We are about to enter a pressure cooker. Stress, sleep or lack thereof, smoking, 3 pressure cooker killers, and 3 of the most polluted countries in the world: India, Pakistan, Bangladesh.
While the risk of diabetes or high blood pressure can be quantified, stress, not so. But make no mistake, it is one of the biggest contributors to heart disease.
The recent death happened was my best friend was Satish Kaushik. And we were shocked कि यार ये बंदा कैसे चला गया. फिर पता लगा कि उसने अपने ऊपर इतना स्ट्रेस ले लिया था.
And stress has become rampant in our society today. Our minds are cluttered.
You're either thinking about the past or you're thinking about what's going to happen in the future. And you're constantly in either of these spectrums and never here. But life is happening here.
Stress, while seemingly in the head, has profoundly negative effects on the physical body.
Even when you say the word stress, my body has a reaction, right? So I think if that itself is the mind-body connection, our ability to perceive a word and feel something in our body immediately. When we face any kind of a threat, our body has a response. And when our body has a response, that triggers our sympathetic nervous system. And when that happens, right, our cortisol levels rise, our heart rate increases, we might sweat, we might get anxious.
Cortisol, God. It can make you put on weight, it can hold on to fat as well, because that's what your body does when it's in a stressful situation. It thinks that, I need to hold on to whatever I can.
The direct connection between stress and heart attacks was studied by Dr. Mohit Gupta.
22 साल का लड़का यार हार्ट अटैक हो गया उसको डायबिटिक नहीं है नॉन स्मोकर नो फैमिली हिस्ट्री लिपिड्स आर नॉर्मल एवरीथिंग इज परफेक्ट
On discussion, he seemed to be on the verge of divorce.
I earn a 6-digit salary. I drive a Mercedes. We have a 4-bedroom plush apartment, but we have never spent time with each other.
Stories like these prompted him to conduct studies on stress and heart attacks.
We started measuring their stress levels, personal, professional, work and general stress. And we also measured their telomere length, which is actually the biologic age. A simple way. And to my surprise, those persons, their physical age was between 18 to 35 years, and those 150 people had a biologic age between 60 to 95 years.
Wow.
Besides all other factors that emerged was they had 98% of them had highest level of psychosocial stress.
Some have placed stress at the top of the list of the causes of heart attack.
Which in my life, I would put that to number 1, even before diet, in my case.
Just like diabetes and heart disease are connected at the hip, So are stress and sleep, or lack thereof.
In this current day and age with the globalization, somebody somewhere in the world is working, so they feel compelled to check their emails at the middle of the night when they wake up, to a point where one of the participants has said to me in the coaching appointment that he thinks sleep is a waste of time.
In reality, sleep deficiency contributes to heart attacks. Indirectly, by raising blood pressure and being associated with stress, but also fairly directly by contributing to plaque formation and heart attacks. A study published in 2019 using the UK Biobank cohort found that those who slept less than 6 hours a night had a 20% higher risk of heart attack compared to those that slept 6 to 9 hours a night.
As we continued on our hike, we were reminded of how much of a privilege it is to be able to breathe clean, fresh air, especially so up in the mountains in the middle of nature. The link between lung conditions such as asthma and air pollution has been known for decades, but the connection between air pollution and diabetes and air pollution and heart attacks is only now being realized.
7 million people die of air pollution related diseases every year in the world. And when you look at it in terms of what is the contribution, nearly 50% is because of heart attacks and strokes.
The villain is a small particle several times smaller than the thickness of a human hair, PM 2.5.
It's a very tiny particle. And when you breathe that tiny particle, it can get into the blood. Once it gets into the blood, it can actually stiffen the arteries.
And as if air pollution is not bad enough for the heart and lungs, the stressed young are smoking like chimneys. And we all know stress and smoking go together and are extreme high contributors to the heart attacks in the young.
People still think that smoking is cool.
And how much can you tell somebody who's a fully grown adult about, hey man, you shouldn't be smoking. You know you shouldn't be smoking.
Smokeless tobacco or tobacco chewing is no less of a risk to heart attacks. Ritwik talked about losing his brother at 50.
भैया को हम सब ने बहुत समय तक कहा कि आप ये ना खाते थे.
Okay.
तो उनको वो खाने की ऐसी आदत थी कि मतलब भैया was not even 50.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not even 50. हर पैंतरा आजमा लिया कि भैया ये ना करें. बट ये लत है. ये अगेन ये भी अपने आप में एक राक्षस है.
ऊपर वाले ने हमें जो प्रोटेक्टिव आर्मर के साथ भेजा था, मानो एक कवच देके भेजा हो, और हम हैं कि रोज उस कवच को कमजोर कर रहे हैं, और हार्ट अटैक जैसा दुश्मन हमें कमजोर पाकर वार करता है.
It is time to put these layers back on ourselves.
When it comes to health behaviors, most people get the wake-up call after they have been diagnosed with a heart attack and in some instances have had bypass surgery. But as they say, this is a big blessing for them and they often change their lives around.
I think nothing focuses your mind more than a really sharp kick in the pants, which is what life gave me with the heart attack.
The key is to make lifestyle changes early. This is opposite to our current mindset of thinking about prevention in our 40s, 50s, or even beyond.
टेम्पल तो हमें समझ में आता है ना, मंदिर है हमारा ये जो शरीर है ये मंदिर है. अगर आप वहां जाकर मंदिर में दिया अगरबत्ती करके उन भगवान की पूजा करते हो तो इस भगवान की पूजा क्यों नहीं करते?
So what do I do tomorrow?
स्वदेश.
Remember Swades. S, stop smoking. W, watch your weight. A, assess your numbers, check your cholesterol, your BP, your bank balance.
D, diet. Very important. Moderation. Don't like kill yourself, go on extreme diets or something. Moderation is great. E, exercise. So burn. When you're putting in, remember to burn. And S is sleep and stress. Remember, avoid stress and lots of sleep.
The human body is arguably more complex than an aircraft. To steer an aircraft safely, there are numerous controls in the cockpit, right? Similarly, we need several control dials to monitor our body. So the three critical starting points are: 1, blood pressure, the silent killer. Must keep it below 120/80 for most.
Number 2, blood sugar. Find out if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes. A fasting blood sugar of less than 100 is normal. 100 to 125 gets you a pre-diabetes label, and over 125 is diabetes.
3, BMI, calculated. For Asian Indians, most recommend keeping it below 23. And 4, waist circumference. South Asians frequently have a low HDL, which is genetic, and only exercise can cause it to rise a bit. For LDL, for right now, remember two numbers, 70 and 100. Lp(a) above 30 and apolipoprotein B above 130 confers higher heart attack risk. Higher numbers on any one of these should get all Indians doubly motivated to lower their LDL cholesterol.
A coronary calcium scan is a special computerized tomography scan of the heart. It looks for calcium deposits inside the heart arteries and yields what is called a CAC score, or a coronary artery calcium score. It is yet another tool that gives us an early indication that we may have clogged arteries. We believe that all South Asians should have a CAC score done early in their lives. We also believe that the only acceptable CAC score indicating low risk is a score of 0.
Absolutely. All these dials, Lp(a), ApoB, and CAC score, can provide one window into our risk of getting heart attacks and motivate us to change.
After assessing baseline parameters, it is time to ask ourselves the question, what is my risk of developing a heart attack in the next 10 years?
Why is this important? Because if we find that our risk is high, in addition to changing our lifestyle, we have available to us a highly effective class of medications called statins that are highly effective in reducing our risk of heart attacks. So what are some predictive tools?
Numerous calculators can be used that are easily available on the internet. Among them, the American Heart Association developed one in the US, the QRisk one developed in the United Kingdom, and several others.
Here's the problem though. When they were developed, they had little to no representation from South Asian communities. So, in the absence of reliable scoring, what should South Asians do?
Two important tests are the Lp(a) test, which is now available at most commercial labs. The other test is this coronary artery calcium.
In the US, if one of these tests is abnormal, statin therapy is considered.
However, approaches to treating South Asians with statins were different from the UK.
So don't spend vast amounts of money on very expensive tests. Instead, let's start focusing on the simple things which are inexpensive, which have huge impact. When we made statins available over the counter for patients to go and purchase themselves, on the back of the packets, it actually said if your cardiovascular risk was above 20%, or if you were a South Asian male. So South Asian males were eligible to take statins.
We often hear from South Asian patients that they do not want to take medicines, but want to go natural.
A recent research study comparing a host of natural remedies such as garlic and turmeric with rosuvastatin to lower cholesterol showed little to no effect of natural remedies, but a powerful positive effect of low-dose medication.
My cholesterol has been high for a few years, and I have been trying. I said, don't want to take a pill. I'll try to do it with lifestyle changes, and it has not worked. So that day, Renu said, Manisha, या तो तू एक तेरे पास चॉइस है, या तो एक पिल खा ले अभी and reduce your risk, or you have an event and then तेरे को 5 खानी पड़ेंगी.
So here is the lowdown on cholesterol and heart disease. The evidence is incontestable that reducing LDL cholesterol levels reduces heart attacks.
It is a shame that despite the strongest level of evidence of benefit with minimal or no risk in people who have already had heart attacks, one study showed that only 5% of South Asians were on statins. हम सब 10 तरह की जड़ी बूटियां लेने को तैयार हैं, लेकिन हम दवाई नहीं लेंगे.
It is also a shame that people continue to forward social media messages on unfounded risks or lack of benefits of statins. This instills a sense of doubt among people and hesitancy to start medication that can be life-saving in the long term. Here's what is recommended.
If you have existing heart disease or diabetes, you should be on a statin and keep your LDL as low as possible, definitely less than 70.
70. For everyone else, if your LDL is above 100, you should be on a statin.
If you are resistant to the idea of starting a statin, calculate your risk score, realizing its limitations. If you are high risk, go on a statin. If not, have your LP(a) or calcium score checked. If LP(a) is above 30 or CAC above 10, go on a statin.
Statins are very important, but we have seen that most roads to becoming overweight, developing high blood pressure and cholesterol, and starting the vicious journey of heart disease lead to the mouth.
Why talk about diet again and indeed other elements of Swades? Because this time around the focus is action steps. What can we specifically change?
When it comes to weight, diet is absolutely critical.
One thing that actually the fitness community will tell you over and over is that changing your lifestyle is approximately 80% diet, 20% everything else.
There are 3 dietary methods to reduce weight: calorie-restricted diets, time-restricted diets, and food-type restricted diets.
Severely restricting food and long periods of fasting, we believe, are both difficult to sustain in the longer term and come with unique downsides of their own. Further, deprivation often results in a rebound of poor diet habits.
Folks who actually deprive themselves of calories, etc., actually have prolonged hunger, increased appetites.
We believe that the most sustained results come from the time-tested method of caloric restriction, since it works on a simple dietary principle.
If you are going to eat and not burn it off in exercise, you will get fat.
So how is this actually put into place? Calculate your TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, and go at least 500 calories below that.
The TDEE is a simple calculator found on a quick Google search that gives a personalized number by plugging in your height, weight, and your current exercise levels.
And the first step after is to track the calories, MyFitnessPal or Lose It.
Many believe that even the simple process of tracking itself gets you to change.
TDE कैलकुलेटर से आपने बताया कि कितनी कैलोरीज, मतलब ये हमें कैलकुलेशन पता ही नहीं थी कि कितनी कैलोरीज हमें खानी चाहिए अपना हेल्दी वेट मेंटेन करने के लिए.
मुझे लगता कि मैं ज़्यादा नहीं खाती हूँ. I used to eat 1 chapati in the night, lunch में भी सैलड खाया. So I thought कि I don't eat much, so मेरी calories should not be. But when I started putting down, I see, oh my God, like it was an eye-opener.
On the type of food, there are countless myths on the internet. Ghee, good or bad. Brown sugar, better than white sugar. Honey has no sugar, and the list goes on. What about green tea for weight loss?
And people think that, oh, you drink green tea and you will lose weight, correct? The only way that the green tea will make you lose weight is you climb the mountain by yourself and pluck the green tea leaves by yourself.
So on the type of food, what are some time-tested principles?
So for the diet, our simple mantra, very easy to remember mantra is more greens than grains.
The most practical method to monitor food is the plate method.
The 50% of the plate needs to be vegetables, 25% protein, and 25% grain. And the other easy to remember number that we give them is 0, 1, 2, 1, 2. So what is it? The only thing that we ask not to be part of their daily routine is 0 sugary drinks. Rest all is negotiable. Then one fist size of the volume of the fist fruit, 2 fist sizes of vegetable as a bare minimum in a day, and 12 nuts.
The typical Indian diet, you see, the rice will be in
a big heap,
Yeah.
a big heap in the middle.
and vegetables will be
Yes,
very less.
yes.
It should be other way round.
So how can protein be added?
Person is taking a small 3 idlis. What we say is cut down on 1 idli. Instead of that, have some sundal. Add into it. Or a thick dal, whichever is possible.
I do this all the time in my North Indian cooking, substituting rice with millet or quinoa or maida with wheat flour in baking. So the key is small changes. So what about severely restrictive diets, such as keto diets and countless others?
When scientifically tested, several of these diets yielded the same outcomes of weight loss in the short term, but difficult to stick to in the long term.
There's one exception that has consistently stood the test of time and has proven benefits in preventing heart disease, and the Mediterranean diet.
And then we were introduced to the concept of making the Indian diet lower in inflammatory foods, more like the Mediterranean diet. Some examples of substitution.
Millets, which thankfully driven by the governmental policies recently has become quite popular. Then the herbs in our diets. They are extremely anti-inflammatory.
And what about eating out, particularly on weekends when we are most likely to lose control?
So what I do is, as soon as I go to a restaurant, I drink a cup of water. Okay. My mom used to say, "Don't drink water, da, because you cannot eat more." When you add fiber first, again, it keeps you full. Especially before a get-together, when you had some kinds of fiber, when you are full, you have this luxury to taste all these wonderful dishes.
Some examples of fiber.
I always say 10 to 15 nuts per day.
Another form of fiber is salad, of course.
As soon as they serve, I make them split the biryani and then put 1/2 into the to-go box, and then I just focus on what I have in front of me. And I call this as I have split personality.
We leave you with practical nuggets regarding diet. Number 1, calculate your TDEE and go lower in calories by 200 to 500 calories.
2. Start logging your food at least for some time to see what is going in.
3. Follow the plate method. Half of it color-rich, non-starchy vegetables such as broccoli or spinach and salad. A quarter of it protein like dal or lean white meat, and a quarter whole intact grains.
4. Make your diet an Indian adaptation of the Mediterranean diet by switching from inflammatory foods such as rice to less inflammatory foods such as millets.
Number 5, add more fiber to your diet, more salads and some nuts.
6. When eating out, control your portion and drink water and consume fiber before you start.
And finally, limit the intake of saturated fats and trans fats, avoiding deep-fried foods and limiting oils that are solid at room temperature such as coconut oil and ghee. Assessing our risk and knowing our numbers, watching our weight and working on our diet. The W, the A, and the D of Swades. A spirited fight with the enemy of heart disease has just begun. And with it comes the realization that the enemy is nowhere near as menacing as it looks.
साफ नजर आ रहा है कि ये दुश्मन ना तो बड़ा है और ना ही बलवान, हम ही कमजोर हो गए हैं. As human beings, we have become weak.
What if we followed the remaining elements of Swades? Exercise and the 3 S's: sleeping well, not smoking, and managing our stress. Can we wipe out the enemy? Our journey moves on.
From diet, our journey moves to exercise. It is so much fun. Our favorite activity, exercise.
My favorite also.
Broadly, you categorize exercise into two main buckets, if you will. So there's aerobic exercise. This is what you do when you're running, when you're on the treadmill, when you're on the Stairmaster, when you're on the bike. Stuff that gets your heart rate up.
So the American Heart Association recommends about 150 minutes of exercise a week, which involves getting your heart rate to about 60 to 65% of its maximum.
The maximum predicted heart rate can be easily calculated by subtracting your age from 220. And zone 2 exercise means 60 to 70% of maximum predicted. So let's see. My heart rate right now, just after this walk, is about 110, which is close to 70% of my maximum predicted heart rate. So I'm certainly in zone 2.
Zone 2 exercise is both good for the heart and also is able to burn the fat quite effectively. Strength training involves weight training and also has other health benefits not related to the heart. High intensity interval training, my favorite, HIIT, is a specific form of aerobic exercise where short sprints of intensive exercise is done to get the heart rate into zone 3 or zone 4. The logic is to get more done in less time.
Ultimately, the message is to do at least something to keep active.
That's what you need to do. किसी भी फॉर्म, चाहे वो योगा हो गया, आप जिम चले जाओ, वॉक कर लो. कुत्ते हैं आपके घर में, कुत्ते घुमा लो.
From exercise, our journey moves to the 3 S's: stress, smoking, and sleep. And what rules over all of them? The mind.
In other words, the mind can be trained to manage stress and indeed manage almost any emotion.
Mindfulness and meditation are examples of this mind training, essentially exercise of the mind.
Mindfulness is the state of being aware, right, of our surroundings, the state of being present. Meditation is the practice of bringing our mind back to that moment over and over and over again. So if you're on a highway and you take a detour, can you bring yourself back, right? I'm having a thought, I'm redirecting it back to the present. That consistent practice by tuning in and focusing in our current environment, that actually has shown to calm your entire system down.
And as soon as you close your eyes for 5 seconds, the first thing that came to my mind was actress Nayanthara. So then I realized that the meditation is not about focusing or concentration or something like that, that you become a spectator of your own thoughts.
Yes.
One of the most common techniques is to focus our breathing while meditating.
Because what's funny is if I tell you to take a very deep breath right now, and then hold it, and then exhale, guess what? You weren't thinking any extra thoughts.
With this meditation, this is one thing I realize. There's a stimulus and there is a reaction. There is a gap between those two. And that fraction of a second gap tells me what to do.
As it related to the heart, an analysis of 23 controlled trials of heart disease determined that interventions such as meditation, breathing exercises, and physical relaxation techniques improved the outcomes when they were added to cardiac rehabilitation programs for patients with existing heart disease.
One study showed that 15 minutes of meditation every day reduced the incidence of death, heart attack, and stroke by 48%.
Numerous types of meditation practices are described. The commonly practiced ones are mindfulness-based meditation, transcendental meditation or TM, and metta meditation, also known as loving kindness meditation.
Both of us practice mindfulness-based meditation, where we focus on our breathing while simply observing our thoughts as they come and go.
Guided imagery is another very effective meditation technique that uses positive affirmations and thinking to affect change.
I used to use guided imagery and visualize my coronary arteries, how my coronary arteries are relaxed, how my blood is getting thinner when I'm calmed down.
Over time, his cardiac disease regressed, and over 25 years later, he continues to have no cardiac symptoms without any surgical intervention. Several experienced physicians noted the same power of positive thinking.
From stress prevention and meditation to its close cousin, sleep.
Sleep is king, queen, everything.
थोड़ा समय देना पड़ता है. It's a machine. Can't you think of it as a machine right now? You need the machine to rest.
Ideal sleep time is between 10 and 11. So 11 to 6 or 7 is a good sleeping habit. Also, as a part of sleep hygiene, we encourage them to stop looking at any screens, at least minimum half an hour, but realistically 1 hour is better.
Smoking is one of the biggest poisons for the heart and numerous other body systems. Well-defined resources are available to help quit, one way or another. The key is to stop smoking.
During a film called Yadein, I stopped one day. I said, no, after this, no more smoking.
Now that we know exactly what to do, guess what is the first thing that comes in the way? Excuses.
If you look at my videos, the first commenters, they say YOLO. I don't even know what YOLO was. I thought it was a Polo biscuit. Then I Googled it. Then they say, okay, YOLO means you only live once. So then I replied to that comment that, oh, okay, YOLO is okay as long as you are solo.
The funny tone of his voice completely transformed to agitated emotion for the next statement.
And if you have kids less than 18 years of age, it is your damn responsibility to be alive until they turn 18.
Niti Palta responded to other common excuses. The first one, I really don't have time.
But you have time to read all your WhatsApp forwards, you have time to scroll through Insta Reels till your thumb develops biceps, you have time to stalk your ex's profile, you have time to rant on social media, usme se thoda sa time kam kar do. And suddenly you'll find you have time to put in 20 minutes into exercise or maybe even 5 minutes into meditation.
ये सब मेडिकल एडवाइस बेकार है. I had, my uncles, देखो वो 90 के बाद मरे, he स्मोक करते थे यार इतना और क्या मस्त खाना खाते थे.
What they don't realize is that, Uncle is like a complete freak, like an anomaly.
Scientifically, we call this one end of the bell-shaped curve. Most people are not as fortunate as Uncle Ji.
It's funny, it's like a person can cheat on his partner with 100 different women, but if you try it, you just glance at a woman and your wife notices you instantly.
Our journey took us next to answer the how to follow expert recommendations.
For this, we visited the west coast of the United States, sunny California.
El Camino Hospital runs a highly effective lifestyle modification program housed in the South Asian Heart Center in Mountain View, California.
Our tagline has become, halt heart attacks, stop diabetes.
About 10,000 participants have gone through our program.
So what are the key components of their program?
M starts for meditation, E for exercise, D for diet, and S for sleep.
After assessing their risk, the participants spend time with a health educator and then follow up regularly. We spoke to one participant, Ashish Sinha, a young and busy IT professional in Silicon Valley. He was found to have some lab abnormalities on his routine life insurance check.
And when the report came out, it essentially reconfirmed everything that the life insurance company had told me. So all my numbers were off the charts.
What followed was a visit to the South Asian Heart Center.
So they suggested me what I should eat, how my plate should look like during lunchtime, during dinner time. They told me that And then they would call me like every 4 months or 6 months trying to get to know how I'm doing.
He learned about how to look at the nutrition labels.
Things didn't improve for the first month. They didn't improve for the second month. For the third month, however, I did see some changes, like my belly size was getting lower and my low density lipid numbers, like they were high and then they came down. So I would see this inflection point in the curve. I'm like, wow, this really works.
As a reminder, the program focuses on people who have not had a heart attack and aims to prevent heart disease. When the program has tracked heart attack rates among their participants over several years, the results have been very encouraging.
And we had a 98.7% event-free survival.
Not everyone has access to such well-developed programs. However, similar but smaller programs can be designed in our own communities. After teaching a medical seminar in our hometown, we created a support group of volunteers who were interested in learning healthy habits and losing weight. The results were very encouraging in the short term. More on that later.
So we have scientifically tested tips to get out of the pressure cooker. क्या करना है ये तो हमको मालूम है. But how? कैसे करें? How do we put these techniques into place?
There is this perpetual conflict between two voices in the head. One has these amazing plans for us, right? The other is this lazy one that prevents us from implementing them. एक हमारा दोस्त है और एक दुश्मन.
There are elements fighting in your head. Yep. Like you want to eat it, the other one says you shouldn't eat it. And sometimes I would give in the temptation and I would eat it, but there would always be this, in the engineering term, you can call it the PID controller in your head.
तो ये तो साफ है कि किस्मत बदली जा सकती है. पुरानी आदतें तोड़ी जा सकती हैं और नई आदतें बनाई जा सकती हैं. लेकिन इस दिमाग का क्या करें? जहां एक साथ राम और श्याम बसते हैं, सीता और गीता बसती हैं, जेकल और हाइड बसते हैं.
You have made the decision to lower your weight or eat healthier or stop smoking. Where do you start? The first step is simply take a step.
If you have 3 birds that are sitting on a branch of a tree and 2 of them decide to take off, how many are left? Most of us will say there's only 1 bird left on that branch because 2 of them decided to take off. In real life, there's still 3 birds that are sitting on that branch because they decided to take off, but they never took off. उन्होंने कभी उड़ान ही नहीं ली.
So don't just think, take flight, take a step, do something, however small, but something.
For example, for the person that eats out 7 times a week, that might mean cutting that down to 3 and cooking 4 times a week. For the person that currently is not able to get themselves to exercise at all, perhaps you start with going for a 30-minute run twice a week.
So at your seminar, when you said that you have to do only 2 things to make it work, that was the point जहाँ मुझे लगा कि अच्छा सिर्फ 2 ही चीज़ें करनी है तो वो मैं ट्राई कर सकती हूँ and उसको मैं मतलब पूरी शिद्दत से करूँगी.
Turns out, most of our behaviors are controlled by habits. If we can understand how habits work, we can start to build healthy habits and break unhealthy ones. The good news, there's a well-defined science behind habits.
Habits are created by a loop, right? Cue, craving, action, and reward. Or as I like to think about it, reminder, routine, reward, the 3 R's, right? Right? I wake up in the morning, I get excited about it. I was never really a coffee drinker, but once I drank it, I love the taste of it. But more importantly, I like the routine of walking to the coffee shop and getting my coffee every morning. So what's my cue or my reminder? It's I wake up in the morning and I crave something that will wake me up, right? When I go get my coffee, that's the actual stimulus. But then my reward is how I feel after the coffee, which is 1, it's my first warm drink. I've gotten some exercise. I feel energized. My brain has learned to pair coffee with being alive.
Using the habit loop concept, positive habits such as starting exercise can be developed by making the cue or the reminder easier. In my case, to help my goal of daily exercise for 20 minutes, I place my exercise boots and shorts right next to my bed. So the first thing I see is my cue to exercise. And my brain is not distracted by other cues like WhatsApp messages.
प्रॉब्लम विद मी वॉज कि मैं मंचिंग बहुत करती थी, मेरा मील छोटा होता था, बट मैं बीच में चाय बना रही हूँ, भुजिया वॉज माई वीकनेस, तो मैं कुछ थोड़ा नमकीन खा लिया, ये वो कर लिया. तो उसके लिए मैंने सब कुछ अपना पेंट्री से आई रिमूव ऑल दोज स्टफ एंड पुट इन माई बेसमेंट. सो भी कभी खाना भी है तो आई विल हैव टू गो टू बेसमेंट, सो दैट्स एन एफर्ट.
सो मेरे साथ यही था कि चलो स्टोर गए, जो चीज़ नज़र आई इसका पैकेजिंग अच्छा है तो चलो ये भी रख लो और वो भी रख लो. तो सबसे बड़ी बात अब यहाँ हुई है कि अब जो भी पैकेज में उठाता हूँ उसको घुमा के देखता हूँ कि इसमें कितना सॉल्ट है.
अवेयरनेस, माइंडफुल ईटिंग बहुत ज़्यादा हुआ. जैसे अगर वो मिठाई वाली बात है तो आफ्टर एवरी मील, मतलब अगर 3 मील्स हैं तो तीनों मील के बाद मिठाई जो होता था वो काफ़ी कम हो गया है अभी.
Once the small action steps are successful, one feels energized to do more and reach for higher goals.
पहले मुझे लगता था कि अनारकली मल्लिकाए हिंदुस्तान नहीं बन सकती, लेकिन अब लगता है कि बन सकती है.
Back to the habit loop, one thing that comes in the way is motivation or lack thereof. Motivators, such as dieting to lose weight for a very specific short-term goal, are powerful and work very well.
I'm not gonna lie, I think what really, I would see all these like famous actors in movies and they were looking great and being able to transform their bodies, like, you know, like actors like Shah Rukh Khan or Amir Khan that were really able to get into really good shape and kind of like look like gods on the screen. And so at the beginning, it may have been a little bit of a superficial cause. I wanted to look good.
But what do you do when the motivators are long-term, such as preventing heart disease, and the activity such as exercise is not really fun, at least to begin with?
The answer is first to associate the activity with something more fun. This is called temptation bundling. A great example is watching a fun TV program along with exercising on the treadmill. What about if the motivation is just not there?
So one of the habits that I have tried to get more into is dancing more. Now, I put it in the calendar. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm gonna dance more. Monday comes around, I'm tired, right? It's not happening. So I've got my reminder, but there's no motivation. How am I gonna change my environment that's gonna easily help me to access dance, right? So what I've done is I have found the dance classes I'm interested in and I've scheduled them in my calendar, but what I've also done is pay for them in advance. So once I've paid for them, I know I don't have an out.
Another well-established practice to both start and maintain motivation is what is referred to as the buddy system.
A exercise buddy who was a friend got them to exercise for longer, for more minutes per week. For women, it was exercising with your spouse that made it more likely that the woman would get more activity per week.
And this group really supported in the sense that with motivation, right? And just encouragement कि करना है, accountability. अभी 5 बजे का है, अगर मैंने join नहीं किया, मेरे को रेनू का message आने वाला है.
You said, okay, now we will get into a HIIT, high intensity, and I was scared. I said, I don't know if I can do that, and I was kind of avoiding, maybe I cannot do it, it will hurt my knees or whatever. But I started with 1 session and 2nd session, and I thought, oh my God, I can do it.
Being able to ask people कि मेरा plateau hit कर गया, तूने क्या किया plateau जब hit हुआ, तो getting those kinds of feedback was really important.
Related to the buddy system is an interesting phenomenon seen in the MASALA study, the influence of adult children on their parents.
So having an adult child who is eating healthy, eating more fresh fruits and vegetables, and exercising makes their parent more likely to be meeting physical activity guidelines.
Me too. Talking about role models, he's in high school now, and high school kids want to be in shape. So this is my second role model. He got me into lifting.
I have seen a classic example of kids changing behavior in our own household. One day, my son, when he was 16, told me that he was starting a healthy diet and I should not bring donuts, which he was very fond of. I did not believe him. And when his friends came over the next week, I brought a dozen of donuts. I learned my lesson that day, as all donuts were sitting there without being consumed. I feel so lucky that both our children have found spouses with similar healthy habits and have taught us the value of eating healthier.
Two other tactics help to reinforce habit loops. One is called substitution, used when there's an urgent desire to have something that you don't want to have.
So for me, chocolate is my vice. I love it. So how do I replace it? I have chocolate protein powder, which I mix with oat milk, which I mix with a few chocolate chips, which are dark chocolate.
This works on several principles in addition to substitution. One is the all or something principle.
All or nothing is how we function, right? If I didn't do it today, I failed my goal. What's the point? I'm going to fail at this. So all or something. If I don't have an hour in my schedule to do something, I can do it for 10 minutes.
Sweets have switched from a slice of cake to a piece of Werther's candy, which is continuing. तो वो जरा सी 20 calorie की गोली is just as satisfying as a cake.
Once the small steps begin to get some quick wins under your belt, get to the next step. Make the exercise routine a bit longer or get to other elements of a healthy diet. You get the drift. And then add another habit to an existing one. This is called habit stacking.
For all the criticism that technology has endured, it really works miracles when it comes to habit change. The current crop of wearables, including a smartwatch, have made a sea change in facilitating good habit formation and helping break bad habits.
Renu and I track almost everything. Diet, steps, sleep, you name it. I even began to track my blood sugar, even though I'm not a diabetic. When the blood sugar shot up after my favorite white rice the other day, it did not take me long to switch to quinoa instead. You get the idea, right?
These tactics have worked wonders for our own support group.
In the 5 months, I've lost about 18 pounds, 19 pounds now.
Matlab, after menopause, I think I had about 10 pounds extra.
Okay.
Which I lost.
0.1, 0.2 भी बढ़ता है तो next day what I do is like instead of eating at 10 o'clock, तो ये मेरे दिमाग में होता है कि जब तक वो उसी point पे नहीं आ जाएगा, I will not eat.
So as we talked of risks of heart disease and the positive benefits of lifestyle changes, we could not help but notice that a lot of the data related to both has been on first-generation immigrants like us. But what about our next generation, those born and raised outside South Asia? The MASALA 2G study is looking at exactly this population in the United States.
There seems to be a high burden of both obesity and high cholesterol in this group. Now, so far our participants are about age 30, so to have such high burden of cholesterol or obesity is really astounding.
What is his overall prediction of risk in this group?
What we know is that their parents experience high burden of heart disease and heart disease risk factors. And we suspect that the second generation group of Indian Americans are likely to experience the same.
So I'm following great lifestyle and I still suffer a heart attack.
Two procedures are commonly used to open or bypass blocked arteries. They are safe and extremely effective. Stenting is one of them. A stent is a short wire mesh tube that is used to open the blocked artery and is left in place permanently to allow blood to flow more freely. The other one is an open heart surgery. Two types of surgeries are now done. In the Western world, the more common one is where the heart is stopped and its function are taken over by an external heart-lung machine.
Then we do the bypass operation using the vessel that we took out from the leg or from the chest wall.
We do all our operations by what is called the beating heart surgery technique, by which we totally exclude the heart-lung machine and we do not do the open heart surgery method.
But whichever type of surgery is chosen, in good hands, both techniques today give outstanding results.
And we, in today's date, we do not expect mortality in any
regular
bypass, even more than regular, only in high risk.
As we approached the end of our journey, we were reminded of the importance of a fundamental shift in mindset in our community.
What is our cultural orientation to longevity? And should it be redefined? If someone who's Indian, at least in my family, lives to 90, it's a big deal. We are a very joyous culture, and we love our children, and we like to see generation after generation go on. We celebrate birth, we celebrate marriage, but in some ways we are culturally oriented to sort of it. Once that happens to our children, our job is done. And so now we're going to die when we're going to die, and that's the end of it. And so the question I have for our listeners is, how are we going to redefine our cultural orientation as South Asians so that longevity is both a right and an expectation?
By the end of the Brown Heart journey and over 100 hours of rich interviews, we could see the landscape clearly through the eyes of our interviewees. Through their wisdom and knowledge, they had already developed a script, a blueprint for action to obliterate the enemy of heart disease from the planet. A really simple prescription, a good life.
The most predictable, the most preventable, and the most treatable of all chronic diseases.
Before you understand what is happening in the world, first try to understand what's happening in your own body.
You have to have ownership of your own body and of your own health.
Most basic thing that we take for granted is our health. Because if you are not fit, if you are not healthy, there's nothing else that matters in the world.
I am beyond blessed. I am supremely amazing. Life is a blessing every single day.
Life is beautiful and one of the most precious gifts given to us by God. Let's take care of ourselves better.
गुलजार का कहना है, सारी उम्र गंवा दी हमने दूसरों के गलतियां निकालते निकालते, अगर इतना खुद को तराशा होता तो फरिश्ता हो जाते.
I've realized, perhaps rather late in life, that it is the smaller things in life that make you happy. Cooking a meal together and eating it, or curling up with a book that you're enjoying, or going for a walk when it's a crisp autumn day.
And last message is, today is going to be the first day of rest of your life. It completely depends on you, how you design your journey after that.
तो ये रब की मेहरबानी है कि जिंदा है, और फिर हाथ जोड़ता हूँ गुरु नानक पातशाह को, सच्चे पातशाह, बहुत बहुत मेहरबानी कि बहुत अच्छी रात गुजरी है और बड़ा अच्छा दिन दिखा है, और सारा दिन बहुत अच्छा रखना, और बस तरक्कियाँ बख्शना, खुशियाँ बख्शना. ये चलती हवाएं, महकती दिशाएं, ये सांसों की हलचल कहती है पल पल, तो नित्यम अनुपम सदा सत्य दिव्यम नमो प्रेम रूपम नमो वृष्टि रूपम नमो 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 नमो.
We're at the end of our journey.
And we can clearly see the entire landscape.
In this landscape, I see beauty.
And I see hope and a dream.
A dream of not just preventing heart attacks in our young, but thinking much bigger and very differently. A different mindset in those that come from the Indian subcontinent. A mindset of longevity.
A dream where our journey is far from done at that time. The journey is actually starting. A beautiful journey of well-being, laughter, and joy.
And a dream where our young set their sights on becoming centurions, where brown hearts celebrate a life of 100 years and beyond in good health.
सफर यहां खत्म नहीं, शुरू होता है. सवाल ये है कि कल सवेरे वो कौन सी एक चीज है जो आप अपने में बदलेंगे. कई बार सोच चुके हैं उड़ान भरने की, क्या कल सवेरे पंख खोलेंगे.
पे हो निशाना, मुट्ठी में भर के जुनून, अब छोड़ हर एक बहाना, तेरे पैर जमीन पे हो और चांद पे हो निशाना, मुट्ठी में भर के जुनून, अब छोड़ हर एक बहाना, सोच से आगे बढ़ के कुछ कर ले, उड़ान भर 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 ले। अभी कितने लम्हे जीने, अभी कितनी मंजिलें पानी, दूर अपनों के संग चलना ऐसी है हमने ठानी। अभी कितने लम्हे जीने, अभी कितनी मंजिलें पानी, दूर अपनों के संग चलना ऐसी है हमने ठानी, सोच से आगे बढ़ के कुछ कर ले, उड़ान भर 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 ले। मेरे यारों के लिए है मेरे दिल से दुआ और अब्बा, 100 साल तलक ना बिछड़े, ना कभी जुदा हो रब्बा। ओ मेरे यारों के लिए है मेरे दिल से दुआ और अब्बा, 100 साल तलक ना बिछड़े, ना कभी जुदा हो रब्बा। ये आसमां को भी बस में तू कर